Hi, Persisters and Brothers. It is the last episode of Persistence U for the year of 2023. How was your year in review? I mean, do you ever take stock of like the things that you're so glad for that happened? Maybe some of the areas that you personally grew in or came out of a health problem, whatever, was it a good year? Was it, what are you pleased about? What weren't you? I love to usually look back on the year and think about the things that I'm thankful for or that I'm kind of proud of. So I am really pleased with the podcast, and I wanted to go over first the top five of the top five episodes of the year that I bring to you, but there are others that you also enjoyed. I love meeting the guests at Persistence U and hearing not just what they're doing today, but what inspired them to become the person that they are. And how does it relate? What's their story of persistence and resilience? So this year, in no particular order, for today, we're on episode 148. And it's just me today and you recapping 2023. But Dave Richman, his podcast episode really struck a chord with many of you, and I'll link him in show notes. He was the author who wrote about having difficult conversations with people impacted by cancer. And after he lost his sister, his best friend, he went on a bike journey to meet with different people who agreed to be interviewed for his book. So he doesn't just talk about his sister and his relationship with her, but why it's important that we all get comfortable having tough conversations when, especially as it comes to end of life conversations, because quite frankly, none of us are getting out of this alive. So that episode really resonated for me, and I know it did for you as well. Now, in March, Women's History Month, I just loved all of those interviews so much, but one of my personal favorites was my friend, who is like the mother I had wished to some extent that I had, Eleanor Andrews. And Eleanor, if you lived in Alaska, you would know her. And that's, of course, where I lived many decades. Eleanor was the head of the Urban League. She owned her own business. She was a single Black mom when I was growing up, and her daughter is my best friend from high school. And so Eleanor was always the cool mom who had amazing jobs. But to hear her story of, coming from Compton, California to Alaska, she actually gave birth in a taxi cab, but I don't think we talk about that part. She had quite the life, tiny little person that she is, with such a big, amazing presence. So having Eleanor talk to us in March of 2023, starting the year off, really meant the world to me. It just meant the world to me. Also, I loved having someone that I looked up, Maria Henson. I had the privilege of reading her work when I was in college in my 20s. And she had written a Pulitzer Prize-winning series of articles on domestic abuse back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, that changed immediately how the state of Kentucky handled domestic violence. It was a scary job that she had being so young, and yet she did it with such passion and determination to make a better world for the women around her. And she did. She absolutely did. And I was so very grateful that she agreed to be on Persistence U with Lisbeth. I also very much enjoyed having Chad Peevy on early in the year. Chad was just a kid in high school when his school teachers gave him an encouragement that he should run away from home, that things were so volatile at his home, and that he would never find the support he needed as he was coming out as a young gay male in a very rural Southern community to a father who was quite volatile. So he took the advice of the teachers and today is doing amazing things for young people who are in his shoes and who sometimes are completely cut off from their families and rejected by their communities. So Chad Peevy's episode, phenomenal. Again, we'll link it to show notes. I also really enjoyed Debbie Russell and why she left a career in law and wrote Crossing 51, not quite a memoir. And she's just such a dear presence. And leaving a law practice and working for the government was one of her best accomplishments, but also to pursue writing, to go from one thing that paid the bills to another that might not, but to pursue her passion just was something, it's something that she does not take for granted at all. And she's had such great success since she was on this show this year with her memoir. And she, again, is such a gracious human being. She's always thankful for whatever good things come of sharing her family story and her ancestry, all of that. I really enjoyed my friend Sally recommended, and a lot of you wrote about enjoying the Carol McBride's episode on dealing with narcissists / toxic moms. And I know I'm not the only one who dealt with that. Right around the time that Carol was my guest, I also contacted my mother to see if there was any way we could sew things back together or pursue a relationship in the future. And it was a great answer to my question, that conversation. I made that on another episode, but Carol McBride's episode was a game changer for any of you who have dealt with that in your life. Other things that just made this year so delightful. Patrons, thank you. I launched my Patreon page and I haven't done enough to advertise it. But for those of you who sponsor, thank you so much for supporting the podcast and my writing. It means the world and helps offset the cost of this, which is great. I have really loved another highlight of this year that I'm really pleased about. I met a dear friend through podcasting. His name is Chip, and he has Home Where You Belong podcast. From there, we decided as sort of two Chattanoogies, new to Chattanooga people, that we should start a networking group of podcasters in Chattanooga because it can be such a solo process and hard to navigate on your own. And so we did launch Pod Chat together, this networking group, and slowly showed some signs of success with it. Of course, neither of us know that many people here. And then we met someone who was just on the verge of launching a similar group with the almost identical name. And it was a perfect opportunity to give this dynamo his due and give him the group. And he has just, I don't know, he's made it amazing. It's called Pod Chat. And if you are in the Chattanooga area and you're interested in podcasting or are a podcaster, by all means, come to the free monthly meetings. Michael Crosa has taken that labor of love that Chip and I tried to launch and just made it amazing. So grateful for that. So thank you, patrons, for giving me hope. Pod Chat also was a great thing. I think coming off a very challenging financial year the year before, I really kept up, and I am grateful for persistence. As you know, I mean, Persistence U podcast is my baby, but so is Persisters Press as an imprint. I love and adore and believe in the power of persistence. And so there are so many things I'm really horrible at, and some things I'm good at. It took me a while as a retiree to figure out how to do contract work that helped pay bills. And so certainly patrons are very helpful. Also, joining and doing my freelance contract work. This year was the year of exploration. I got to do some ghostwriting, still working on that. I still have a contract, personal coaching in just a limited amount, and really adored that. And I've gotten to the point where people find me instead of me searching for clients. It was on this freelance site that I use that I also came into contact with an opportunity to be an interviewer for true crime. It started out as 10 hours a week and is now a full-time actual regular job. I'm so grateful that I could have, you remember at the beginning or the very end of last year, I got a lot of things happened, but one thing that happened was I got scammed out of some money using a freelance site, and it would have been very easy to quit then, but I had to realize that I had not done my due diligence in keeping financially safe when I made an error that in hindsight was relatively small amount of money compared to what other people have lost due to online scamming. But it felt like the world was ending at the end of 2022 because so many things had piled up. So in 2023, to have it turn around and to finally find that true crime job, especially getting to reach out to brave and amazing people with fabulous backstories, sometimes who are willing to talk about what it takes to put one shoe on and then the next shoe on in times when maybe they've lost loved ones, even children, when the world has turned upside down, and now they're still standing and able to share what helped along the way. And that job was it's just so important to me. So that was a huge fun win. I will say thank you to patrons, thanks to podcast listeners, and thanks for all of us for persistence, for continuing to move forward. What are you pleased about this year? If you want to share, write me. But yeah, and let me know if I can read it over online. But when you look back over the year, what are you pleased that you made it through or that you made it to? What are those things? And what are you hoping for this next year? I definitely, well, I can't say definitely, I should say, I know some tweaks I want to make to the podcast, so I'm excited about that. Proud that I got out Grounded in Grit, Turn Your Challenges into Superpowers, also available on audiobook this year. For the next August, I have another book coming, so I better get going on that because my editor gave it back to me a long time ago. But that's something that I'm definitely working toward, and yeah, trying to take a breath, feel secure and not being insecure financially and otherwise, just feeling like, okay, I've reached a stable place for right now. Life is we're in a good spot here. And I took a little break and went on a vacation this last week. That was funny because I had so well planned that, and I was going with my podcasting friend, and so excited to not have to cook, not have to clean, and to have excursions, going to go on a cruise. But as happens in life, sometimes your best laid plans don't exactly materialize. So let's just put it this way. Reaching Florida at a time where they were possibly going to have a tornado and finding out that the weather wasn't going to get a whole lot better, it definitely changed the landscape of relaxation and sun. But I have to look back. I channeled my inner 5-year-old, unfortunately, a couple of times, at least in my head. But we kept moving forward, had a very shortened trip. All of the things we planned that were going to be fun, the excursions, were all canceled. There was some other things that went on in the ship that were unfortunate just because of flooding. But I will say that all in all, I got more relaxation than I would have otherwise. If the weather had been great, I would have been doing 5 million things all the time. I came back and realized I got to catch up on reading and relaxing and talking. There were a couple of really great shows. So how bad could it be? Honestly, I shouldn't ever ask that question, but you know, what can we do? Sometimes in life you get what you need and not what you want. And maybe what I needed was just a relaxing trip. The nice thing also is we have a free cruise voucher for the future since this one went so south. So that's nice. I will not be running to do that anytime soon, but it's sure good to come back home. And that's the best part of going away, maybe, is that it reminds you of what you have right at home to be grateful for. I'm grateful for you. Grateful for this year, definitely saying goodbye to 2023. And I'm excited because I get to see my grown daughters in a couple months, actually in like 6 weeks. I will be taking a little break from the podcast then, but stay tuned until then. We're at episode 148, season 4. If you've just started listening, you've got a whole fun backlist to enjoy. Thanks as ever. Find me at lameredith.com. Sign up if you like for the monthly email that'll keep you in touch with what's on the podcast and in writing and in life. I hope you have a good one and celebrate whether you're alone or with people, however you like, and have a terrific week. Thanks so much.